Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 3-0 Take, where we talk all things Major League Baseball. Here's Kyle Corwin and Nate Reyes. It all starts right now.
Welcome back to the 3-0 Take, presented by Chinook Seedery. This is episode 524. I'll be your host, Kyle Corwin. I'm here with my co-host, Nate Reyes. Nate.
Oh, how we doing, guy?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing.
Another year, another round of blackout issues. Tell the people your situation.
It's just ridiculous. Like, it's the amount of protection it has. That's all. Just trying to take in a little Diamondbacks Yankees, and today's game's on Prime. Still can't do it. Still can't view it. Even yesterday's game was on TBS, and I was stealing my father-in-law's DirecTV stream account. Put it on TBS, blacked out. You literally cannot watch unless you buy this MLB TV Diamondbacks package.
If you live in the greater Phoenix area.
There's just no other option. It's crazy. Annoying.
It's
like,
so simple. It's so simple. Like, how can we grow the game? I don't know. Maybe make the games available to watch. Like, are you telling me? And look, I'm in a good mood today. I didn't want to start this podcast off in a negative light. But to your point, it's worth readdressing, because it's the year 2025 and we're still asking this question: how are blackouts still a thing? Are you, like, I'm not a business guy in when it comes to financials and dollars and cents, but are you really telling me that pocketing the exclusive rights for these games is more valuable in the long run than making your games available to more people who will then grow up to be lifelong fans of that team, spend money to go to games, spend money on concessions, spend money on merchandise, spend money to get their kids into the fandom, and have them at games, have them wearing merch? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Are you that concerned with local ads? Like, that local ads are that important?
Crazy. Speaking of dollars and cents, holy concession,
this is a barrage.
Or concession contract extension day. Unbelievable. I couldn't keep up. Like, I was about ready to leave for work, leave to come home from work, and the Ketel Marte extension drops. And I was like, well, I got to add that to the laundry list of things we got to cover. But my goodness, we're in our contract extension era as baseball fans, I guess. Just taking them all in left and right. Where do you want to start? You want to go Jackson Merrill?
I like this one. Yeah, it's a good place to start.
Let's start with Jackson Merrill. The Merrill madness, as I'm seeing all over the place. And boy, did he cap off extension day well. He went yard, right, center.
Sure.
Sent Petco faithful into a frenzy. Love that for the kid. But the Padres and Jackson Merrill have agreed to a 9-year, $135 million contract extension, a $30 million club option for a 10th season, and has a maximum value of $204 million.
Ooh.
I don't know if it's just because the extension and all this happened today, but this is not a bit, I'm not just saying this. There was a switch that flipped today for me where I was like, am I becoming a Jackson Merrill fan, like, overnight? Like, I don't know what it is about.
Is it because you just traded for him in fantasy?
Well, I mean, that plays into it, I'm sure. But that certainly plays into it. I'm not going to deny that. But I feel like there's an element, though, where you feel more validated in your opinions of a guy when the franchise that employs him backs him financially in a significant way. You're going, okay, like I'm not just being a fanboy here, or if you're a fan of the Padres, I'm not just being a homer here and getting hyped up on prospect reports or whatever it may be. Like the front office believes in this guy too. And you know how hard it is for a lot of these front offices to fork over money. So if they're willing to do, well, maybe not the Padres, they're willing to spend money on a guy if you got a pulse. But if these front offices are willing to spend money on guys, then you know, okay, maybe there's something to believe in here.
Yeah. I mean, I think we kind of picked up on that when he was slotted into the middle of the lineup after last year's performance. And you know, obviously took the NL Rookie of the Year down to the wire in my mind. But
which I'll give you credit. You were back in Merrill NL Rookie of the Year hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing against Mr. Paul, but it just, I don't know, man. It's a little bit different when you're playing center field every day, and for what he did to that lineup in that team in general. So whatever. I mean, it's not. I don't care. I'm not going to die on that hill, but I liked it a little bit more. But and this buys out last year pre-arb, 3 years of arbitration. So like, you know, like this is a bargain in a way. If you're going to have to go to arbitration year after year for the next 4 years, it's like, if he does what he did last year, if he comes even close at any point during this, like you're talking about probably a pretty large uptick in the yearly salary. So it's like, do you really want to go through that over and over again? I like that the Padres, like, because everyone had question marks around their offseason. Everyone had question marks of like, are guys for sale? Are they not? Are you open to moving these guys? Are you not? We understand that they're locked into 3 big names with Tatis, Bogarts, and Manny Machado, but it's like, how do we kind of bridge that gap into that next chapter? And it's
don't forget Darvish, by the way.
Darvish as well.
Darvish is in that mix.
But I have you have those names that are like obviously closer to the back end of their career than the beginning. So it's like, how do you bridge that gap into the next generation? How do you bridge that gap into who's going to be the next face of your franchise? And, you know, Tatis has some question marks around him at times. And also, you never know, like, is that a trade piece at some point? So it's kind of cool that they're not just sitting back saying, hey, we paid these guys and we're going to let our young guys just figure it out. You know what I mean? Like a lot of franchises do that. They commit to the big veterans and then kind of piece it together with younger guys, but you don't see like super early extensions. So it's cool, man. It's a no-brainer. If you're a Padre fan, you got to be super stoked with the fact that like a lot of this core is locked up for a long time, and barring any crazy trade, you can get used to seeing these names.
What's the likelihood, do you think, we're looking back on this contract the way we do? And I know it's different position groups and things like that, but like an Ozzy Albies, that's the one that gets pinged a lot, or even an Acuna to some extent. Like what are the odds you think we look back on this going, what was he thinking agreeing to such a contract?
No, I don't. I think those are still the worst. I don't think it's even close numbers wise. What does this end up getting to? You said potentially 180,
204. If
it's at 180, potentially 204.
No, 9 is 135. Includes a $30 million club option.
I thought I had 180 in my head.
Who's got?
I don't
know. Maybe one of the other extensions.
It could be. They're all blending together today. Yeah, man. I don't quite put it in that neighborhood. I like Jackson Merrill. I don't know if he's going to be a Ronnie Acuna.
No. And again, I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
that they're the same players or going to be the same players, but looking back on this contract with the same sort of contempt or not, maybe that's even a little too strong, confusion almost, where it's like this guy ended up becoming this and he didn't have the foresight to just, and he's going to get if he goes on to be that, I'm sure they're going to restructure or he's going to get another payday, certainly, but agreeing to something so early. It's sort of that thing. Like that life-changing money versus knowing your worth.
I think that's the win-win. I think that's the win-win. You know what I mean? Like you get to avoid all the arbitration BS. You get to avoid the league minimum. You get to avoid the uncertainty of having to stay healthy for the next 4 years through those arbitration years. That could all change. You know what I mean? And especially in that last arbitration, you have one down year. You have one unhealthy year. And that number changes drastically. And you're 4 years later into it. Whereas this, like, you may even have the potential of getting a second paycheck, like you said. So I think there's certain numbers that where you kind of look at and you scratch your head. I think it's a win-win. I think it's a bargain for San Diego. I think it's obvious that the Padres are ahead of the game. They're going to get him at a bargain for a while. But I do think it's kind of like that's a nice little paycheck to avoid instead of a argument for an extra million or 1.5 in arbitration hearings where things go south all the time.
Classic win-win scenario.
Win-win-win.
Win-win-win for having successfully negotiated this deal. Ketel Marte, 6 year. This was the one I mentioned earlier, dropped minutes before making the commute home. So we've had a little bit of time to catch up on the fallout, the details of the deal. 6 year, $116 million extension. Yes, Laura in the chat. Win-win. Win for all. 6 year, $116 million, which, hold on, let me pause there. I mentioned the chat. I was meaning to mention this off the top.
Okay.
But this is a great opportunity to remind you folks to, if you catch the live streams at any point, like whether it's our Sunday stream or our Wednesday stream, if you make that your rhythm, I just also want to remind you folks that we are we were originally a podcast. Like we don't just do live streams. So if you miss any of this, it's all going up on the podcast. Wherever you catch your podcast, we're available there at the 3 Take. Shout out the podcast, shout out the audio, but we certainly appreciate those of you that catch any of our live streams. With that said, back to Ketel Marte. If you do recall, he signed an extension back in 2022, which was 5 years, $76 million. So this replaces that. And again, talking about Jackson Merrill, like these things happen more often than you think. Guys restructure contracts or they get new contracts altogether. Based on the way the trajectory of their careers, roll out, pan out. I know you're a big Ketel Marte believer. You're a big Marte truther.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, look, like, not to bring up old history here, but like, when we did our projections a few years ago, we tried telling everybody that Mr. Marte was in the conversation of being the best second baseman in baseball. And I think now it's been absolutely solidified. Just looking at the numbers, and I mean, like the chapter in Seattle, obviously something wasn't clicking there to begin his career. I think sometimes people forget that like he's been around a minute, dude. This is his 11th season in the show, which is it's just nuts. So you combine the things not clicking with Seattle, you combine the first couple years in Arizona where no one was paying attention to the Diamondbacks. You combine that with the back and forth between second base and center field, not really having like a solidified role, still putting up numbers. and then explodes into what you're now seeing, like a very consistent, productive offensive threat. And I think I just saw like OPS plus is like a career 111, 112, something like that. I posted a 155 OPS plus last year. OPS is north of 800. Like, you don't get that at second base. It's not common right now. Combine that with the fact that like he doesn't strike out a ton. He swipes a ton of bags. All things are a go here in Arizona for the Diamondbacks. Like, it makes sense. This makes sense. If this is what you're committing to, and I like the fact that you already had him locked up. Now you're restructuring it. You're adding on years. You're bumping up the number. Then you're saying, like, you know what? If this is the best hitter in our lineup, and that's what they're saying. That's what everyone says. I love Corbin Carroll. We've seen what Geno Suarez is starting off the year as. We can see what this whole lineup is doing. But when you listen to that broadcast, Ketel Marte is the dude. So it's like, I like that if that's your guy and you're restructuring those deals, you're bringing in free agents for big numbers, you say, you know what? Let's pay this man. Let's bump it up a little bit more. It says a lot to him. It says a lot to the ball club. Oh, this is just a win, win, win. Win-win.
Win-win-win.
What now?
Breaking news. Breaking news. I love that Nate looks at his phone every time I hit that button. Crazy breaking news just coming in hot off the press.
Sarcasm.
Hot off the press. Rafael Devers
Got a hit?
just got his first hit of the season.
Goodness, bro.
Just want to throw that out there. That is all.
Wow.
Now, before I forget, you mentioned Eugenio Suarez. 5 hits on the season, all home runs. Right?
Something
Crazy.
like that.
Stupid.
Something
That's
like that.
That's a Kyle Schwarber-esque stat, if I've ever heard one.
It is.
No, but I'm with you. I'm a big fan of the Ketel Marte extension. Savvy, we often rip front offices for the way they handle personnel, holding on to guys too long, getting rid of guys too early. Very savvy handling of Ketel Marte, knowing that you had him while things were still you're on the rocks a little bit. But you held on to him for when you were really going to be making pushes, obviously making it as far even as the World Series, and seems to be another threat this year. So good on the D-backs for the way they've handled one of the game's best second basemen. So
100%. Dude.
Shout out to the D-backs. Talking about a front office that has struggled to make the right move as of late. They're racking up some wins. My Boston Red Sox locking up Garrett Crochet and Christian Campbell. We'll start with Garrett Crochet. 6 years, $170 million. Includes an opt-out after the 2030 season, which would be his 31 age season. Or he would be 31 after the 2030 season. I saw, where was that stat? Okay, here we go. No pitcher, and forgive me, I think this is ESPN. I want to make sure I'm giving due credit here. No pitcher who received a 9-figure contract had done so with fewer than 800 innings. Crochet did that with fewer than a third of that. So the Sox get their ace. I'm very much thrilled, very much excited about the prospect of being able to watch a guy knowing that he's not looking for the nearest exit, regardless how this season ends. I'm looking at you, Alex Bregman. Who's to say though? I mean, maybe Bregman comes back. Who's to really say? We don't know. But I just love when a guy gets paid, but also gives you the sense that he wants to be there. And you know, I've said before, he sort of rubbed me the wrong way, just referencing or making light of his innings or lack thereof, and the demands he was seemingly making the second half of last year or right around that time, saying like, I'm only going to sign if I get an extension, or I'm only going to accept whatever the exact language he used was. It just sort of rubbed me the wrong way. But I don't know. I don't know if I have to like eat my words here or what, but it seemed like something switched. Maybe he just got into this new environment, got into whether you want to call it a winning environment yet, who's to say, but more of a winning environment than where he's coming from, certainly. And maybe something just clicked where he's like, you know, I like the pitching lab they got here. I like the direction they're headed. I think this place could benefit me for a good portion of my early career here. So why not take this deal? And he took it. And like I said, the Sox got their ace. So
yeah, no, I mean, you had to assume this was coming at some point, right? Like, I think if you're the Red Sox, based on those demands, based on I think there's a risk, but like it still makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it still makes sense. What does that break out to be? 26, 27 million a year?
I think it's
like
27.
Yeah. So I think it could end up being really good. I mean, yes, it's risky, but it's like
28.
You know, the TJ is out of the way. The lack of innings like doesn't necessarily scare me. You know what I mean? Like I was with you, like I was kind of rubbed the wrong way just for how high the demands were, for not necessarily being able to prove that you're that guy yet. And I'm not saying he has proved that yet. But I can understand the Red Sox philosophy for making the move and making that extension now and not waiting for him to have a huge year. Because if you wait to do this after the season or even later in the, you know, second half of the season, like, and he's dicing, like that price tag just goes up. So
correct. Yeah.
I think it's a smart time to do it. I think you already mentioned, like, when the trade happened, they didn't really give up a ton to get him. Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. And you got to assume that when you look at the next year's market, like, are there names that you're going to be able to go after in the same way? Are there names that have the same potential? Probably not. So makes sense.
No, it's a great point. Like, there's only going to be so many guys that are going to provide you the output, the results that Crochet is going to provide you, while also being in a position, we'll call it a vulnerable position, that would allow you to maybe, I don't want to say take advantage of him, but like get him at a lower rate than the market would offer down the road. So it, like you said, no brainer. I think the Red Sox fully had this type of move in mind when they traded for him. And they were able to get it done. So good on the Sox. And coming out today also was the news that they extended Christian Campbell to an 8-year, $60 million contract. I love these kinds of deals because there's no, I mean, it's not your money, it's not my money, it's none of our money, but
it's not, but we still play Monopoly in a way. Like, we still have to calculate that, and we still have to, like, predict what they're going to do with, the money they have and the money they spent. So like we're still as a fan doing that calculation.
Sure.
So I know it's not our money, but I get what you're saying. Like
it
feels like this is it's like a free space.
Yeah, like I've always been in the camp. I'm pro player. I'm wanting these guys to get paid what they're worth. But at the same time, I love the deals where you don't have to sweat it as a fan. You're not looking down the road going, well, if this guy, I was actually talking about it with somebody, believe it or not, I was having a rational, reasonable conversation with a fan on Facebook today, and he was like, it's risky for a guy that's played a handful of games. And I said, even if you DFA the guy halfway through, that's a drop in the bucket ultimately. Yeah. So the fact that there's so much upside for Christian Campbell, he's proven that he belongs here with the way he's moved along through the system, the way he performed this spring, and even the way he's shown out in the very early going to the season here. This is a deal, again, where if it doesn't work out, so be it. But if it does, to rehash the point we made earlier, if he feels as though he's worth more, you can have that conversation with the front office and you can figure something out, make an adjustment in a very similar fashion to a Ketel Marte who plays the same position and could possibly be seen a similar contract given to Christian Campbell should things get to that point. So I'm excited about it. And to be honest with you, I don't know all that much about the kid, but from everything that I'm seeing, everything I'm hearing, I'm glad to see that we're going to have a mainstay at second base, because there has been a lot of turnover at that particular position for the Red Sox. In fact, I think they're up there towards like the league lead, if not in the league lead for turnover the last, I don't know, call it 6-7 years at that position. So,
yeah. But I think it also, not saying that like you're not gonna sometimes sit him, but it also kind of feels like they're committing to that direction. And when you brought up Bregman earlier, you're like, obviously during spring training and offseason, we were like, will Bregman play second to make room for Devers at third? And now that they've come out and like committed to this direction of like Devers is the DH, like it just feels like they're very much choosing a route and they're committing to it,
which I love.
And like that, any fan of any team would be happy with that. So that part's got to be refreshing.
You and I have said this time and time again. Just commit one way or another. If you're taking the rebuild route, go that way.
Yeah.
If you're trying to build things up and go for it, go that way.
Yeah.
And if you have to call an audible at the deadline, so be it. But for as long as you can, if it allows, pick a direction and go for it.
Yeah. Who's next, by the way? I mean,
that actually covers.
What's your wish list? No. I meant like as a Red Sox, like you'd like to.
Oh,
like who do you feel like would make sense to be the next guy?
I mean, I feel like it's sort of cop out, but it's an answer that I don't think a lot of Red Sox fans would disagree with. But Roman Anthony, I think it's going to be a similar situation where he's going to be up for a very, very short amount of time before the team realizes we need to pounce on this guy.
Yeah.
Before too much time passes, because as you know, these seasons fly by, and these guys hit the market. It's a blink of an eye. So they need to jump on this. I'm sure these conversations are already taking place, and I'm sure there's a plan in place, barring any crazy mishaps, off the field stuff, injuries, what have you. Assuming he stays on the straight and narrow, continues to produce. I think that's another the next guy you lock up.
What about Duran? I was just looking it up because
It's
he's a weird one. He's late bloomer.
yeah. I was
He's
gonna
still in
say
arbitration, so like he's controllable. So like you could throw out like a 5-year deal and that takes him to like 32, 33 years old. And if you did that for
yeah. Well, the thing you got to think about with Duran though is like when you think of Duran, what's the first thing you think of when it comes to his skill set?
I mean, I would probably say defense.
I would say even more so speed.
Yeah.
And that's just
Like
not
athleticism in general.
sure. Yeah. But specifically speed, like a guy that's able to 9 times out of 10, I would even go as far as to say 10 times out of 10, leg out a double or leg out a triple from a double. And that's just sort of what characterizes his gameplay. And as you just mentioned, a late bloomer has a little bit more time under his belt. And so you have to weigh the pros and cons of like what's the sweet spot if we were to extend him. How many years would that be? What would that look like financially? Because you don't want to get to a point where his game hits, sort of plateaus and then sort of falls off as he gets older. Because as we very well know, even the fastest in this game don't keep those legs fresh forever.
That's what I'm saying. I think if you lock him up now and you get him through 32, you don't feel as guilty to let him walk. You know what I mean? Like no matter success, if he's super successful, Sox win a ring, like whatever it is, he's in MVP conversations, like you don't feel guilty. But I think if you let him get to 31 and you haven't locked him up and he's an unrestricted free agent, then now you're talking about like, okay, now we're having to pay him for what he's done. And then we're taking even deeper into the 30s. And you're almost like at a point where you're going to regret that contract by the end of it. So it's this weird like place where I feel like if you did it now, you buy out the arbitration, you commit to a guy, you have this core, all vibes are high. And then you don't have to worry about being super late into the 30s.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I love Duran, but it's one of the weirder situations for me to look at and try to process. Like, as much as I love Duran, is this a guy that I would like? If the news broke today that they committed to him for however many years, we use your example, they extended for 5 years. Like, what would my gut feeling? Like, what would my initial reaction be? And I don't know if I know what that is right now. So
yeah,
I think this season, or at least the early part of it, will be pivotal for me, at least, in processing what kind of player I believe him to be. And surely that doesn't matter. It's what he believes himself to be and what that front office believes himself to be. But I'm just saying, because you asked me the question, I have to see a continuance of that gap to gap power, the putting balls off the wall, stretching doubles into triples, things like that. And it not just be a thing where, okay, maybe last year's top 5 war worthy season was a flash in the pan and that power regresses. And now we're just back down to like quality defense and good speed that, as we mentioned, one of those facets is going to decline. I don't want to say sooner rather than later, but at some point over the life of an extension. So we'll see. Jurickson Profar, buddy. First of all, can we get some clarity on what's going on here? Because I've seen some things talking about, like trying to start a family, fertility, HCG, testosterone, PEDs. The drug that he tested positive for was chronic gonadotropin.
Nice.
Gonadotropin. I read, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong here. I read that this was something that was designed, or maybe not designed to, but an effect of this drug was to mask steroid cycles, correct?
Yeah, that's what I read too. I read there was a masking agent, and it was what Manny got popped for back in the day. And I'm sure you remember a lot of that conversation was similar, where it was like, I thought this was a fertility thing. You know, it's this is weird. And it's almost too smack you in the face obvious with like, you haven't been good majority of your career, and then all of a sudden you have a big year and you got paid.
Well, that's a big topic, because I've seen a lot of people say, well, it makes sense you had the year that you had last year. I don't know if I'm entirely buying that, because like to be able to perform over the course of an entire season, you know that there's testing going on. I just don't feel like, I don't know. I mean, these things happen. Guys are able to make it work. They're able to, slip certain tests and bypass this or that, what have you. But the optimist in me, so I just want to be on record. I'm trying to be optimistic here, not just throw the guy to the wolves. Do I like that he got busted for this? No. Or I shouldn't say, I mean, sure, if the guy cheated, then he cheated. I like that that's being upheld, certainly, but I don't like the decision he made to take something that could potentially get flagged. What I'm saying is I'm just going to assume that he had the year that he had, and if there was some malicious intent here to try to, capitalize on that, maybe they're mutually exclusive. I don't think that there was, or I'm just going to guess, this is purely speculation, that there was no overlap necessarily, that this was more of trying to build off of last year as opposed to contributing to what we saw last year. Is that fair to say? Or are you in the camp of thinking that like some fishy things were going on last year?
I think it's fishy, but I don't really know how this stuff works. Like, I don't know how. I think that's something that is hard for us as a fan base. That it's like there's not a ton of clarity on how often they're tested, what they're tested for. And I know that it's like, it's random because we hear these stories of like a guy going 5 for 5 and then the next day he gets tested, right? Like, it's like you see some crazy performance on a player, and that's across all sports. Like,
right.
Like Saquon rushes for 3 touchdowns. He's getting tested the next day because it's
and
like
they're tweeting about it.
No way you had 3 tutties without, right? So it's like
crazy.
I think we get like just slivers of information, and it's really hard to put together like a full understanding. We're not told how often it happens. We're not told what they test for. I don't even know if we're told on time, because like my thing is the Verdugo signing happened week and a half ago. Like, did the Braves know that this was happening? Did they keep it under wraps? Was there an appeal process? Like,
Profar came out and said, where's the quote?
Read the Profar statement, by the way, because it didn't sound like it was an immediate apology. But I didn't remember reading anything about like, I didn't do this.
Correct. Yeah. From the article that I was reading, in a statement passed along by the MLB Players Association, Profar called Monday, quote, the most difficult day of my baseball career, and said he was, quote, devastated by the news. Profar added that he was tested 8 times for PEDs during a surprising breakthrough season offensively in 2024 and, quote, never tested positive. The positive test, according to Profar, that's key, occurred this offseason. This is quote, this is especially painful for me because anyone who knows me and has seen me play knows I'm deeply passionate about the game. There's nothing I love more than competing with my teammates and being a fan favorite. I want to apologize to the entire Braves organization, my teammates, and the fans. Yeah, so if the positive test occurred this off season, then what's the timetable there for him finding out, for other teams in the league finding out, the team that signed him finding out? I don't understand there. And
this is what I'm saying, is that like I'm not going to say owed, but there has to be some type of clarity with this process. At some point, there has to be an understanding of what the rules are around this stuff. And I'm not saying it's black and white, and there's every circumstance is different. Every player is probably different, but like, I think things like this are going, I don't know if we're ever going to go back. I don't know if we're ever going to go back from not getting fully guaranteed contracts. But stuff like this is one of the first times where I understand like where owners and the baseball side of it comes from, when it's, time to negotiate collective bargaining agreements with the MLBPA, right?
Definitely.
Like you have to understand, this screws the Braves. This just screwed the Braves. How often has this happened? How often? And I know he's not going to get paid during this period of, I think he's forfeiting like something of like $6 million or something like that. It's just odd, because like that's a commitment, number one, for the organization. The ripple effect, we've always brought up the ripple effect of guys that have gotten cut because of this, guys that have gotten traded because of this, maybe other free agents that got passed up because of this. Like there is a large ripple effect. And that's why you can't help but feel a little bit scummy. And we're always pro player, but these are the types of things where I'm like, how is it always fully guaranteed money no matter what? How is that just the always the standard? And not to go down too far of a rabbit hole, but when you have teams that are stuck in this limbo of not being able to rebuild, but not being able to compete with the rest of the league because of money committed and unseen circumstances like injuries, like flops of players, like you watch teams in like the NFL and you see guys just get cut left and right. It's not guaranteed, right? It's just cut. We're going to dodge this much money. We're going to eat this much money. But you're able to see teams rebuild and kind of restructure a lot quicker. And so as much as pro players we want to be, as much as we want to argue like, go get your bag, there's a downside to that. And it's these teams potentially struggling for a chapter because of bad moves, because of unforeseen circumstances. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm kind of on the fence.
Dude, I am pro player 99% of the time, but it comes with this wild, crazy stipulation that you have to just be like a decent human being. You have to not get busted for PEDs. You have to not be soliciting.
Beat up your wife.
You can't be beating up your wife. You can't be killing people. You can't be soliciting minors. Like, yeah, and that's in those scenarios, which we're seeing sadly more often than I would like to see, honestly. And really, I'd like to see them 0% of the time. But these are professional athletes. These guys have money. They have influence. They have power. These things happen. With that said, though, in those cases, there has to be some sort of clause in the contract that guaranteed money immediately goes out the window.
Yeah.
And in those scenarios, in that situation, Yeah, I'm on the side of the owners of the front office, whoever's forking over the money, and in understanding that, like, yeah, I'd probably want my money back too. Think of just an average consumer. If you buy something and it doesn't do what you expect it to, it doesn't work,
Take it back.
it goes bad, you return it, you get your money back.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Like, that's just simple dollars and cents. That's simple business. And so, and I'm not just saying Profar, any of these guys that get busted for PEDs, whether maliciously or not, whether there was intent or not, like, sorry, there's rules that are in place. And if you cross that line, there needs to be some sort of stipulation that says any guaranteed money is going back.
It's either I'm not saying fully forfeited. I'm not like, I think there should be an opportunity for the Braves to have to, like, the ability to rework this contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to lose money in this guy. Not only are you wasting a roster spot, right? Like, you're committed to a player. We already talked about the list of ripple effects. But you're also committing to, like, that player's image moving forward with your brand on his hat.
Correct.
Right? And, like, sometimes we can get over it. Sometimes it's water on the bridge. Sometimes we can differentiate, real world versus fandom and sports, and like, all is well with Marcell Ozuna. Apparently, like, if you hit enough home runs, like, we can forget about what you've done in the past.
His
right?
former teammate in San Diego, Fernando Tatis Jr. Even, like, I've gotten over it. I'm right? Like, whatever. Guy's electric for baseball.
So it's like, I agree, man. Like, there has to be some type of back to the drawing board opportunity for these teams of, like, you just committed whatever amount of years to this guy. It's not even so much about the dollar amount. It's like your commitment to that guy.
Right.
He dropped the ball on the commitment, and the team's just SOL. Like, I don't understand how there isn't some type of clause with these situations. And we get one every year. I'm not saying PED use or PED suspension. I'm saying any of these weird, if you want to lump them all and categorize law breaking with domestic violence, with whatever Wander Franco's thing was, and PED use, if you want to just group that into a category of, you can't play on the field, you broke our rules, you're telling me there's no way out for these teams? You're telling me there's no chance that the Atlanta Braves are going to be like, we're actually out. We'll pay, you can come back, you can play the rest of the year. Can't play in the postseason, by the way. He won't be eligible. So,
well, I see in the chat. I see in the chat he doesn't get paid while he's suspended. I think we're talking, like, longer term here. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
There's a, like, larger commitment at play here that I think
exactly
has to be discussed between the league and the MLBPA. And look, I know that the MLBPA is going to go to the extreme every time. So that's just the art of negotiating. You're going to go as far, you're going to take as much rope as you can and take it the other direction and opposite directions, knowing that you're eventually going to recoil somewhere around the middle. And I'm guessing because there aren't these clauses or stipulations in place yet, my guess is that the Players Association looks at situations like this and they go, behind closed doors, we may not necessarily agree that these guys or that these teams don't have a way out should something like this happen. But, we got to back our players. So we're going to have to demand that money is paid and contracts are still in place when they get back. I don't know if I fully agree with that.
I can't argue injuries. Injuries happen. Injuries are part of the game.
I
think if you have weird clauses of, like, guys that, like, aren't allowed to do certain things off the field, like, you know what I mean? Like you can't You can no longer ski or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you can't risk that. But if it's an on-field injury,
can't ride a bike.
Right. Like if it's an on-field injury, like there's only so much you can do. Like I'm not saying you should be able to get out of that. But if it's an unforeseen thing, like let's just change the position, for example, because I don't think left field was necessarily a super deep, top-heavy position this offseason. But let's grab 2 pitchers. Let's say the Dodgers were fully in on Blake Snell and fully in on Corbin Burns this offseason. They wanted to offer them the same contract, right? And let's say, you know what? Let's go with Blake Snell. Let's pass on Corbin Burns. For whatever reason, let's go with Blake Snell. And a month into that contract, he gets popped. You're telling me there's not a ripple effect? Like you're telling me that
Correct.
We chose this guy and now we're committed to him and we're committed to whatever backlash that baseball fans and media are going to give because of this guy. And now we're going to face the ripple effect of what it does to our clubhouse, what those guys are going to deal with questions. Like that's what we're talking about.
No.
So the fact that the Braves are off to the worst freaking start imaginable.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Their lineup isn't hitting, and now these guys have to start answering these questions. It's already a hard enough start, right?
You want to talk ripple effect? Their starting lineup for tonight's game, April 2nd. Ozzie Albies, Marcelo Zuna, Austin Riley, Matt Olson. You want to know what it looks like after that? Brian De La Cruz in left, Nick Allen at short, Stuart Fairchild in right, Chadwick Tromp at catcher, Eli White in center, and Bryce Elder on the bump.
I haven't heard of most of those guys.
And we're 7 games into the season, and I'm not going to sit here and say that Profar is the savior, but it certainly doesn't help when you're not available, and you won't be available for half the season.
And decisions are made differently if you can bow out of that. Like, who's to say the Braves wouldn't go look for who's to say that Luis Robert doesn't suddenly become available in their mind? If they could have an opportunity to back out of this. Say, you know what? Profar contract, I want it off my table. We're done. I'm going to go look for a long-term solution. Free agency is done. Not really interested in the guys that are still available, even though they brought in Verdugo. He's not obviously the long-term answer, but you say, you know what? Now we can go in a different direction. We go seek a trade. Like, that's what I'm saying. These teams deserve an opportunity to do. And I'm not saying they have to. I'm not saying they even would. I'm not saying the Padres would have bowed out on Tatis and focused somewhere else. But to not even have the option for these guys that make a boneheaded decision, it's like, I can see why the fully guaranteed stuff is difficult for teams to commit to. And you're not asking them to run for president. You're not asking them to raise your kids. But at a certain point, like, these guys have to live up to a certain standard. I don't know, man. Maybe we're too deep into it. Whatever.
Well, speaking of, you're just giving me all sort of segues here. Speaking of being too deep into it, where are we at on the panic meter for the Atlanta Braves? We sort of just alluded to this, the start they're off to. They're 0-6. This is coming into Wednesday. 0-6 for the first time since opening 0-9 in 2016. The 6th time since 1901 the Braves have lost their first 6 games, and 4th time since they moved to Atlanta in 1966. You want some nuggets? I got some nuggets for you.
Please.
To sort of feed one way or another. I'm thinking it's going to lead you one way in terms of your thoughts on where the panic meter is at with the Braves.
Okay.
And this is from Sports Illustrated. Want to give the Sports Illustrated their due. None of those seasons that I just mentioned ended well for the Braves. At best, the Braves finished 81-80 in 1980. At worst, they lost 106 games in 1988. Their most recent 0-6 start, which again I mentioned was the 2016, that evolved into an 0-9 start, which was en route to a 93-loss season. While the Braves have never made the playoffs after an 0-6 start, they aren't entirely without hope. And again, I'm just reading the article verbatim. They aren't entirely without hope from history. 3 teams that have started 0-6 have gone on to make the playoffs. The most recent example is the 2011 Tampa Bay Rays. That Rays team went on to start 1-8 and rallied. And then they finish the article by saying it can still get worse and still get better. Where's the panic meter at if you're the Braves?
10 means like fire somebody. Like
10 is don't even bother showing up to the ballpark tomorrow. Back up the truck, turn out the lights, party's over.
I'm at like a 7-6, 7-7, to be honest. Just because they don't have reinforcements. Like, I know Ronnie Acuna is coming back. I know Strider's coming back, but like, they're already not very deep. You need a Matt Olson. You need an Austin Riley. I said this and no one really like seemed to support it, but I was like, Michael Harris has to go. Like he's got to get going. He's got to live up to the hype at some point. I feel like he's running out of opportunities. And I feel like every Braves fan has told me has the potential to be the best center fielder in baseball. And it's like, when? Where? I haven't seen it. They have to go. The season's long. I'm not going to freak out. I don't think it's out the window by any means. But like, yeah, they got to change the narrative or go get some depth somewhere, somehow.
I mean, I'm pulling up that. I think it was like what the Heyman tweet.
Oh yeah, he's like
of the starting lineup.
Yeah.
That they rolled out the other night. And again, I know the average isn't the end all be all. But just to start the year, the lineup they rolled out I think was it last night or the night before? Michael Harris hitting $111, Austin Riley hitting $118, Olson 154, Ozuna 182, Albies 118, Baldwin 071, De La Cruz 0, Kelnick 188, Arcia 154. Attaboy Arcia. That's kind of what you're working with right now. And again, like you said, the season's long. There's plenty of time to turn it around. But again, to your point, no reinforcements. And the guys that you need to lean on are also like, this isn't just like some of the guys are pulling their weight and the rest of the team is struggling. Nobody is pulling their weight right now. Nobody.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure, we were talking about it in the group chat. I think the guy that had the highest average is now out at 80 games.
Yeah.
So
oh man,
you tell me.
It's really unfortunate, man. Because look, I had the Braves deep in consideration for this division. I'm in the wild card.
I've got them winning the thing.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It really is.
Shout out Brendan. I was talking with Brendan on Instagram. He's a big Braves guy, big follower, big supporter. He said, I posted to our story before the pod early this evening, just sort of giving the rundown of what we were talking about. And he replied to the story. He's like, you can just skip all the Braves news. Like, Braves fans are in a dark place right now.
Because like you spent the whole offseason being like, oh, okay, 2024 is a wash. Everybody got hurt. Like, we made a couple moves this
we
offseason.
did that too. We supported that
Oh,
narrative.
yeah. Well, but overall, you and I don't really care about the Braves outcome when it comes down to it. Braves fans are like, hey, it's a clean slate. We're good. We're getting guys back. And now you're like, is it May yet? Because they need these guys back now. Now. If there wasn't, I think they'd be happy with finishing the month out 500 somehow. It's hard to say, man. Real hard to say. Real hard to see. And I don't know what the back half of that lineup is, but Ronnie Acuna Jr. does not totally solve that issue.
And like I said, nobody's sort of put a bow on this here. Nobody's pulling their weight. They're coming into Wednesday. They're 1 for 34 with runners in scoring position. That's not a one guy problem. That's not a back half of the lineup problem. That's an everyone problem.
How long before hitting coach gets fired?
I don't know.
What gets the hitting coach fired?
Well, I mean, I'm as big of a believer in the whole hitting is contagious thing as the next guy, but
it goes the other way too.
Right.
Yeah.
Like something's got to give. Like if they don't win, like if they're coming back to their home opener, which, not to go off on a tangent here, but I put out a post today that got a surprising amount of blowback for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. We can discuss that if you'd like, but basically it's crazy, dude. People are just looking to argue about stuff. But yeah, if they're coming back home 0-7, again, this is ahead of their finale with the Dodgers. If they come back 0-7, does coming home fix it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. Sorry, let's go.
Who do they have at home?
Let's see. While I look this up, my tangent was that
they need to lay down.
Well, they got it. Marlins starting Friday.
That's huge. It's huge for the brand.
Then the Fightin' Phils come to town. Well, you better get a sweep against the Marlins, because my Fightin' Phils are rolling into town, and I'm not going to want to see them coming. Just quick tangent here so I can get this off my chest. I put a post out today across majority of the platforms that we got here, because every now and then I come across a post where I was like, I feel like this will be received whether poorly or well by the people.
Okay.
I said, this is such a lame take, but I can't help but come to the conclusion that opening days, a week into the season for teams that play a week's worth of road games to start the season, don't feel like opening days. And I know that's a mouthful, but I'm basically saying when a team comes back after being on the road for 7 games and they prop it up as this whole like, oh, it's the home opener, it's opening day. Like for the Braves, for example, it's opening day at Truist Park. Like, bro, it's been a week. If you want to get real technical, go back to the Tokyo series. Like, it's been longer than a week. Like, everybody's moved on. And I'm just saying, like, it sucks for fans that like we don't get the, like, I wish there was a way logistically that we could get like at least one home game for every team checked off
quickly.
Like by the end of the opening weekend, because we start Thursday, you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If there's just a way logistically to make it work, and I know it pretty much is impossible and it won't happen, but I'm just saying, like, it'd be cool to give every fan base that quick hit right off the top of having it feel like a true opening weekend instead of a week plus after the season started. And there's just a lot of people, I don't know, for some reason, a lot of blowback with that. And I'm like, I know we don't agree on a lot of things, baseball fans, but I feel like this is one thing we kind of all could have gotten behind. Like, yeah, I'd like to see my team at home the first weekend, but people were just not having it. Anyway, moving on here. We talked Braves panic meter. Let's close the book here. I got a handful of news and notes. Dodgers, who we just talked about, 7-0 for the first time in franchise history. The Rangers, thanks to Nate Eovaldi's, thanks to Jack Leiter's shutout today, Wednesday, managed to throw back-to-back shutouts versus the Reds after giving up 14 runs on Monday. And that first shutout was thanks to Nate Eovaldi, who also threw the first Maddox of the 2025 MLB season.
Love it.
So you love that for Eovaldi, big Eovaldi guy. Esteury Ruiz was traded from the A's to the Dodgers after being DFA'd. Well, acquired by the Dodgers after being DFA'd. Has been sent to AAA. He has options. Colton Cowser. What's that shaking of the head?
Just more depth. Just
why not?
More depth.
Why not? Colton Cowser out for 6 to 8 weeks with a broken left thumb after sliding into head first on Monday versus the Sox. Excuse me. That was in Toronto. He was put on the IL when they opened up against the Sox. Sorry, say that again.
Know of him yet?
Wrong hand. Let me see here.
Could pull the Marcell Ozuna and go double oven mitt. When I'm trying to take a pizza out the oven.
I thought I had the video of it. Maybe not.
Tough. That's a tough break.
Stop. No, it's terrible. No, but it begs the question, or it doesn't beg the question. It's worth reiterating that, like, studies have been done. It's faster to run through the bag. And they're talking about it on the broadcast. I was watching the O's broadcast, and they were like, which I agree with, you get caught up get swept up in the moment. You're just trying to make something happen. Sometimes you even feel like you got to get out of the way because of the angle that the pitcher's taking. Sometimes they don't take the banana route like they're supposed to, run up the line. Sometimes they come a little bit more diagonally, which can lead to some issues. But if at all possible, just run through the bag. And this guy's a professional. I'm not telling him something he doesn't already know, but it's worth repeating for the folks that maybe aren't aware of that. But if you were curious, yes, it is quicker to run through the bag as opposed to diving head first. So all I have to say, though, hate to see the milkman out for that long, but I'm sure I'm hoping that the O's can, for the sake of what they've got going on over there, that they can tread water until they can get back, because sounds like they've got a couple injuries stacking up, and you hate for that to get out of hand. So I
think Gunnar comes back this week, though.
Yeah, we need to.
Everything I've seen is that he's supposed to be coming back Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, a little bit of good news there for him then. Paul Skeens. Shout out to a guy that you appreciate very much, Justin Havens, Nugget Chef on Twitter. The last time a pitcher had it, he originally tweeted, Paul Skeens now has a 1.92 ERA through his first 25 career starts. And then he quote tweeted that and said, the last time a pitcher had a lower ERA through his first 25 starts than Paul Skeens, 1963.
Sure.
So Paul Skeens, 25 starts under his belt, and is looking like the stud that we know him to be. So good for Paul. By the way, came out with a GQ, or I don't know if it was recent or maybe just some photos resurfaced of him and Livy Dunn. I don't know if you've seen it. Crazy.
I didn't see the photos. I saw there was like a Q&A thing between them. And he's like, can you show me my sinker grip? He's like, I don't know.
Dude, it's crazy.
And she actually was like kind of close to.
You need to look at the photos. He's sitting at like a piano, and she's kind of like on top of the piano, and they're sitting in front of like a snowy window. It's like snowing outside or whatever. But he looks, I'm not gonna say ridiculous. Like, dude's a stud, but it's just, like it's a funny picture when you really look at it. But no, dude's balling. He's living his life. So good for Paul, big Paul Skeens guy. And lastly, here, Lance Lynn announces his retirement, or as somebody mentioned in the comments that I saw earlier today, the MLB GMs announced that Lance Lynn was retiring, as I'm sure he was maybe holding out hope for another one, maybe one last year. And quite honestly, I thought he would at least start out the year.
I did too.
But no luck. He's calling it a career. And funny enough, he actually, I read that he mentioned it on he announced it on his wife's podcast. So that's a cool little plug there. Get the wife's podcast out there with a big career announcement. But on his career, went 143 and 99 with a 3.74, tossing just over 2,000 innings.
That's a good career, man.
That's a solid career.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a long ride. That's nothing wrong with that. I always appreciated his attitude. I always kind of liked he had a little bulldog in him. He wasn't really afraid of anybody. I like that in starters.
Yep. Love that mentality.
Yeah.
Love that mentality. Think that's all I got.
Sweet.
You got anything else?
Sweet. Nope. Going to Vegas for the first time tomorrow.
Oh.
For work. I don't know what to expect, to be honest. I feel like everyone's just like, you have no idea what it's like until you're there. So we'll see. We shall see.
Enjoy, dude. I've never been.
Yeah. I'm not like a, just not that there's going to be any time. I'm literally there for Thursday. I fly back Friday afternoon, but I'm not really like a casino guy.
No, but you've been known to throw down a few bucks on this or that.
If I can find that'd be kind of nice, actually. If I can find like a sports book to just hang out. Those sports books are sick.
I don't know. There's probably no sports books in Vegas.
Yeah,
I mean, who are we kidding?
Probably no shot.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Hard pressed to find one of those.
I'll check in on the A's stadium progress, though.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, with that said, I guess we can close it here. Shout out to those of you in the stream, the live stream. Shout out to those of you that missed the live stream but are catching up on the podcast. As I mentioned earlier, if you can't make the stream, you can catch us on the podcast wherever you get your podcast at Spotify, Apple, Google, the like. And also check out the shop. I've gotten a little bit of an itch recently to maybe, as you can see here,
you want to drop something?
A little shameless plug for year 2 of getting a new hat on opening day. It's a tradition I started last year. Some of you have probably heard me talk about it. This is my newest addition to my collection. Big hat guy, and I feel like I got an itch to maybe add some hats to the shop for the
big head guy too. You need a big head.
I got a dome, dude.
Yeah,
got a dome. But yeah, this is the new right here. This is the new hat I'm adding to my collection. But I'm always down to get some pod hats.
Me too.
Honestly, if we just, I mean, we'll keep throwing up some shirts and this and that. But honestly, like if our pod shop just becomes a hat shop, I wouldn't be upset about it.
Me neither. Keep firing them out.
Love hats, man. Me. Love hats. That's all I got, man.
Cool. You guys are great. Stay great. Don't go chasing curveballs.
Love you all. And as always, looking forward to talking more baseball with you guys soon. Until next time, stay filthy.